there's a field that connects everything together. The experiments suggest that Max Planck's matrix, this matrix, is the conduit. It's the conduit that carries, the bridge, if you will. It's the bridge that carries our inner experiences into the outer world. Now, the idea that everything is connected is a very old idea. Even in science, in the late 1800s, there was a belief that there was an invisible web of energy that connects everything in the 1800s. And scientists were in a very heated debate, very controversial, as to whether or not this field exists. There was a very famous experiment that was conducted to determine if the field called the ether field actually existed. In the year 1887, the very famous Michelson-Morley experiment was designed to tell once and for all, is the field here or no? Yes or no? The field exists? It does not exist. In my opinion, it was a good experiment. However, it was poorly interpreted. And let me give you an example of how this experiment worked. If we were all to walk into the parking lot outside of this building, don't do it, but if we were to do it, and the moment we were outside, we moisten our finger and place it above our head, and in the moment we do that, if we feel no wind against our finger and conclude that no air exists, that is the equivalent of this experiment. We know just because there is no wind, there still can be air, yes? Right? Well, just because they felt in this experiment that the field was not moving doesn't mean that the field is not there. But that was the conclusion. Over 100 years ago, modern science conducted an experiment. And based on the interpretation of this experiment, the Michelson-Morley experiment, the belief has been that there is nothing in the empty space. That everything is separate from everything else. That what happens in one place has no effect on what happens somewhere else. That has been the belief. For over 100 years, our science has been based in a belief that is incorrect. It's incorrect. Now, this is very interesting. 100 years later, 1986, the United States Air Force repeated that experiment. 1986, the United States Air Force replicated the Michelson-Morley experiment. They published the results in the very prestigious journal Nature, the scientific journal Nature. What they found was this. They repeated the experiment with good equipment, much better equipment. The bottom line is that the field exists. They found that the field is actually there. This is reported in August 1986, the journal Nature, volume 322. They said, the field is there. And not only is the field there, it measured precisely the way that Michelson and Morley had predicted 100 years earlier. They just didn't have the equipment to work this out. Now, why don't we know about this? This should have made the cover of every major magazine and newspaper. This should have been on CNN headline news or Sky News. But this changes everything for the scientists. Because the textbooks all say the field is not there. Entire careers are based on the field not being there. And now the field is there. And the scientists are saying, okay, the field is here, what do we do with it? What do we do with this field? Well, the field now is so new. Now that it has been rediscovered, everyone is giving it a different name. Many, many names for the same field. Some are calling it a very technical name, the quantum hologram. Quantum hologram. Okay? Some are simply calling it the field. A colleague of mine and a friend, former Apollo astronaut Edgar Mitchell, when he was in space, he had an awakening when he was behind the dark side of the moon, completely cut off from all communications with the Earth. It was cold. It was dark. There was no communication with the Earth until their little tiny space capsule came around the dark side of the moon. And those astronauts could only hope that all of the engineers at NASA did a very good job on their spacecraft so that they could come around on the other side. And when they did, and Edgar Mitchell looked at our little tiny blue planet suspended in the blackness of space, something changed inside of him. He felt different about his life and his world. And he has now dedicated his life, since he has come back from those missions, he has dedicated his life to studying consciousness. And he founded an organization called the Institute of Noetic Sciences. Noetic, Noetic Sciences. And part of the mission of the Institute of Noetic Sciences is to understand this field that connects everything, and they simply call it the field. Edgar Mitchell called it nature's mind. Stephen Hawking, the physicist, calls it the mind of God. Max Planck called it the matrix, and now we're calling it the divine matrix. All names for the same field. I wanted to share this with you. I want you to know this field is there and it's real. And you're going to see just how real this field really is. Scientists have visualized, because they could not see this field, they imagined that it would look like many filaments. So they imagined it would look like many filaments of energy if we could see it. But scientists could not see it until recently. National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, built a satellite and launched it into deep space for the purpose of measuring fields that we cannot see with our eyes. It's called the Chandra, Chandra Observatory. Recently, the Chandra Observatory sent back information that has now been modeled on the computers, and it tells us that what we used to believe was empty space is not empty. There is no empty space. In 1999, the astrophysicist took the data from the Chandra Observatory and they ran it through the computer so that the computer could show them what is in the emptiness of space. Okay, the next image is the image of the Chandra Observatory showing us what is in the emptiness of space. Okay. And this is what it looks like. The bright spot that you see in the center, that is the center of our universe. And we are out here somewhere. These are the patterns of energy that cannot be seen by the naked eye, but that the sensors have picked up in deep space, showing that there are filaments of energy that connect everything. There is no empty space. Isn't this a beautiful image? It's a powerful image. I think it's the divine matrix. Okay. Now, this image right here, what do you think this is? Just take a guess. Anyone. Guess what this image might be. And think small. I heard someone say it. These are the filaments of the energy in your brain. These are the neural networks of the human brain. It looks very similar to the filaments of the matrix in the universe. Look at this. These are the neurons in the human brain. Here are the filaments of the empty space from deep space. And it brings to mind, as above, so below. They are very, very similar. And the question now that scientists are asking is, do we communicate with these fields of energy through these fields of energy? And I think that's precisely what we're seeing. Precisely what we're seeing. I think these are very powerful images. This is, to my knowledge, the first time we've been able to see the energy that is believed to be empty space. And we know that it is not empty. As above, so below. So this field of energy, the divine matrix, we know it does more than simply connect everything. It is the container for the entire universe. The divine matrix is the container that holds our entire universe, number one. Number two, it is a bridge between your inner world and your outer world. This is the reason why your thoughts, feelings, emotions, beliefs, prayers in here have an effect on the world beyond your body. And number three, it is a mirror. This field reflects in the world around us what we create in the world inside of us.